Hi again. So today I thought we'd talk about Ashi sabaki, the types of Ashi sabaki, and maybe show you a few little tricks or bits of equipment you can use to help you make sure you get your spacing on your footwork correct. Bear in mind that with all 5 footwork types, the spacing should be about shoulder width apart. There might be a little bit of adjustment depending on sort of your hip width, your shoulder width, your height, etc. But roughly, your feet should at rest be shoulder width apart. And that's the same for all of them when you're not in the midst of the actual step itself. So you always want to start and return to that about shoulder width apart. It just helps keep you balanced, keeps you centered, and it helps keep you stable. The other thing to remember is that with all the footwork types, the power or the movement is coming from the foot furthest from the direction you're trying to go to. So with Ayumi Ashi, which is pretty much just like walking forward, though with a slightly lowered posture, so knees a bit softer, a bit bent, keeping balance maintained. When you're walking forwards, it's the foot at the back that is generating the push forward. When you're moving backwards, it's the foot at the front that will generate that push backwards. So it's always coming from the opposite of the direction you're trying to get to. It's also very important to make sure you're maintaining good posture when you're walking, or in fact, during all of your Naginata. You should always be trying to keep your spine centered and straight. Think about pulling up through the center of your head. So if you have enough hair at that point of your head, grab your hair, pull up. You're trying to keep a straight line up the back of the neck, up the back of the head, through the spine itself. And your spine should be centered between the weight of your feet and your hips. So again, it's very important that you have that shoulder width apart so that your spine can sit centrally between them. You don't want to be pushed to one side or the other, because that makes movement a little bit harder because you're already off balance to begin with. So with all of your footwork, all of your technique, all of your kamae, really focus on keeping that straight line down through the back and that balance in the center. Another important thing to keep in mind when you are focusing on your footwork is to make sure that the heels aren't crossing over. So it should always be a case of have it kind of like that. So if these are the heels of your feet, when you're moving forward, you don't want to be crossing over so that becomes the case, because what happens is when this foot needs to move, it'll either have to hit the other foot, or you're going to find yourself stepping around. And what you'll end up doing is creating sort of an S shape in your walk, a little bit of a snaking along rather than going directly towards your target. So always make sure that your heels aren't crossing over. There should be that little bit of gap between them. It'd be a bit more comfortable, a lot more stable that way too, better balance. So make sure that your heels are more like this, if you're looking at them from the front or back, not like this. Because stabbing yourself in the back of the heel with your own toenails isn't fun, and doing the S shape just keeps throwing your balance and your position off. So I'm going to take a few videos of the various footwork just so you can see what we're trying to aim at, things you can focus on when you're working on them at home. If you want to help work on your posture or your distance, there are a couple little bits of equipment you can use, hopefully that you have bits of at your home to start with. So, to help with your posture, your balance when you're moving, making sure you're not leaping up and down like a baby goat. Pair of rolled up socks, really, really handy. You can use a book on the head if you like. I tend to find that's really noisy when it crashes off, and they tend to be a little bit slicker, so they don't stick quite as well to the head, especially if you've got a lot of hair. A pair of rolled up socks does nicely. It gives you the same effect. So simply roll them up. I like to put them lengthways across. It sits a little bit better, just across the center of your head. And what you'll find is that you'll feel that little bit of pressure, pull up towards it, and just try and make sure that you're keeping your movement stable and very smooth. And that should hopefully keep that from falling off. If you're practicing something like snake strikes, for example, you're just going down a snake, a lot of people do tend to pitch to the side or teapot, and that's when you'll feel it wanting to tip off. So pair of socks on the top of the head does wonderful things for making you focus on your posture, your balance, and just keeping your movement stable. And to help with that, obviously keeping your knees slightly bent at all times, just to act as a bit of a shock absorber. Another bit of equipment you can use, and if you've happened to watch some of my slightly off-kilter you can do at home videos, you'll be familiar with this one already. This is the bottom of a t-shirt. I've literally snipped off the bottom hem of an old t-shirt that I wasn't using, so I wasn't going to miss. So please, if you do this, use your own t-shirt or a shirt someone has kindly donated to you. Snip off the bottom so you just have, a couple of inches along. A lot of these t-shirts, just make sure they've got a bit of stretch so you can feel that give in them. If you happen to have a resistance band or some elastic, you can use that instead. All you're really trying to do is make a loop or something to basically bind two distances together. In this case, this is for your feet, your ankles. So all I'm going to do with this is literally twist it up. And if you imagine my hands at my ankles, you're pretty much handcuffing your ankles together. You're trying to make sure the distance is so that when it's relaxed, it's not extended, it's just a relaxed position. It's basically at shoulder width apart, so the distance you want all of your footwork to start and to end. If you find you've got way too much distance in this, you can always just tie a knot in part of it and then work with what's left. But really what it's doing is just providing you some feedback while you're training, so you can tell if your feet are extending too far. So when you are stepping out, you'll feel a little bit of pull as you move out, but as you come back in to finish your step, you should actually feel it just relax into position. You shouldn't feel a tension. If there's a tension when you've finished your movement, then your feet are too wide. Okay, so let's have a look at the different footwork.